Did you want to talk licensing?
Oh, yeah. I nearly forgot about it. Okay, so we've been rabbiting on about the changes to VSB14 and so on and so forth since, it's been a few months now, and 180 kilowatt per tonne, etc., etc. Well, it turns out, Nick, that not just some, but a lot of the people at the Department of Transport, and this is at various levels of state government, I felt quite humbled by this, to be honest, listen to our podcast.
Does Rita listen?
I don't know if Rita does, but I think Rita pays someone to listen and do notes, give her a summary.
Okay.
Probably while she has a coffee in the morning. I don't know. Anyway, so I was approached. He let's just say he would prefer to remain anonymous.
Yep.
And I'm going to use journalistic privilege to not disclose any details on it.
No, that's fair enough.
But I was approached by one of the people. He said that, I'll just kick it off by saying that he said that he thought a lot of what we said or say in the podcast was good and true, but he also said that a lot of it was ill-informed and incorrect, or in layman's terms.
Yeah.
I think that may have been the actual word that he used, to be honest.
Okay.
But anyway, so the reason that all these changes are afoot, which was this is really what I wanted to talk about tonight. The reason that all these changes are happening is because of right? So what's happened is, I'm not going to disclose this guy's name. I don't even know this guy's name, to be perfectly honest. But we're just going to refer to him as okay? So this has put an application in to put an LSA engine in his early Commodore, right? I don't know what model it was, VK, VH, whatever it was, right? And it got knocked back. Now, the way, for those of you that don't know and haven't modified cars, the system that we had in place from when I started back in 1989 was that you were allowed to increase, like they figured out that, we've got to keep some sort of control on the power that we allow them to put in these cars, just so it looks good in the public eye. Okay, so they used to say, well, you're allowed to increase the capacity by 50%, right? So a V6 Capri, which was a popular conversion, that had a 3-litre engine, so you could go to a 4.5-litre, which was a 289. Okay, so similarly, if you had a 202 Tirana, you could put a 253 in it, so like a LCLJ. Okay. So that got reduced a while back to 25%, right? And then they had factors for if it was turbocharged or supercharged or whatever. So going by that 25% rule with a supercharger on the LSA engine, it doesn't fit in a Commodore that came out with a 5-litre, right? Under the 25% plus all the factors. So what this guy did was he kept reapplying with different engines, right? And he managed to get the application approved with an Audi turbocharged 4-litre V8. They rubber stamped it. Now, I've got to tell you, I've built an adapter to go from an Audi-based engine, right, to a turbo style, like Turbo 400 style transmission, okay? Not the easiest thing on the planet to do. Right?
I can imagine.
And whether you could fit one of those engines in a Commodore engine bay, I don't know. I mean, I'd have a crack, but it'll be interesting where it ends up, because it is designed to go in a car where it sits in front of the front axle.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're 4-wheel drive, the Audis. So, anyway. So, he then took his approval and then all the ones that he's been knocked back on, and took it to the Ombudsman, right? And his reasoning was that the 4-litre twin-turbo engine makes the same or more power than the LSA. So, thereby, by the government approving it, by the Department of Transport approving the 4-litre, they should, theoretically, be able to approve the LSA. This was based on horsepower,
Yep.
right? But we never used to look at horsepower. We used to look at the capacity. And then if it was turbocharged or supercharged, we had a factor that we added into the capacity. So because of this one, the Department of Transport got dragged over hot coals and told, your system is broken. So they've had to go through the system again. So really, this is a case of one person spoiling it for everyone else, right? So nothing, from this person's perspective, nothing's really changing, okay? The 180 kilowatt per tonne reference is it's interesting because it's a scale that is going to change dependent on the age of the vehicle.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So what they've done is they've said, well, the most powerful power-to-weight ratio of this era is this. Then if you move to a more modern vehicle that has airbags, ABS, it moves to this, and so on and so forth. So in 2020, if something comes out that's got, whatever, and the power-to-weight ratio is deemed to be higher, well, then the power-to-weight ratio application will be higher again.
Yeah, okay.
But before we get to this stage, there are two more things that are going to occur, okay? And this is where it's very important that if this affects you and you are going to modify a car or you have plans to in the future, you need to actually do something when this occurs, okay? So right now, it's getting reviewed internally, right? So all the people that are involved in it at a government level are all passing comment. Then it goes to the industry. Unfortunately, in Western Australia, they consider the MTA and the RAC to be the industry, which, they're going to pass comment. Obviously, they're wowzers, and they're going to, especially an insurance company, like, what do you reckon an insurance company's going to say? Yeah. They're going to say, we think it should be 5 kilowatt per tonne. Right?
Yeah.
So then the last stage, which is the important part for all of us, is that it goes to public comment. Now, this is the new system that the government's got in place. It's not just, like the McGowan government, but it's that something happened along the way and they follow this process. Someone came along, some advisor, and said, you need to follow this process. So it goes through these 3 stages and then it gets put forward to legislation, right, with the recommendations. So those recommendations are made up of their own department, the industry, in this case RAC, MTA, and the public, right? So you got to get on the government websites, not just Department of Transport, this happens across the board, and keep your eye out for this stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And when the opportunity comes, you've got to write in and you've got to say, hey, listen, I don't think this is right, I don't think it's fair, et cetera, et cetera. But it all made a lot more sense when this guy explained it to me, and I was grateful. I said to him, mate, I'm really, really happy that you approached me. It's I can understand how this came about. And if you think about it, it's logical because someone pushed and pushed and pushed for their own device. They've created this problem. So we could have gotten away with a lot of stuff before because we were just looking at the capacity. We weren't looking at the horsepower output. Now we've been forced into this situation where we're looking at the horsepower output. So that's it. That's where we're at with it.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update, and we're appreciative of that person that called you, even though we can't say his name or her name.
We actually met. It was actually
really?
Yeah. They got in contact with me and they said, I'd like to catch up. They wanted to do it face to face, which I thought was
that's even better.
Yeah.
No.
Look, there's people within the Department of Transport that don't agree with these changes. They I think the problem with the world right now is we've got too much of this PC bullshit.
Yep.
Right? And, there is always going to be laws that are not right, and there's always going to be morals that are not right. So you got to decide which one you want to follow. If you want to follow the letter of the law or what is genuinely right or wrong. So, we'll see what happens. I know that when it goes to public comment, I mean, I'm hopeful that you'll be able to keep an eye on this and we can inform the public of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day.